Today, in this video, I'm answering or talking about one of the most common topics that I get and the most common question that I get, which is how do you overcome objections? If this is your first time here, my name is L'Oreal Lipkins, and I have been doing sales training since 2009. I've trained over 10,000 salespeople and entrepreneurs, teaching them how to close business, get more clients, make more money, and selling in a way that feels good for them and is good for their clients as well. So this is a very interesting topic because, like I said, it is probably the most frequent question that I get. How do I overcome objections? How do I get people to buy? What do I do when people tell me no or they don't have the money, right? And so today I'm going to be breaking down, like, how do you actually handle that? And more importantly, why are you getting objections in the first place? And this is going to be really important because I often think that people are asking the wrong question, right? And so their question is, L'Oreal, how do I overcome objections? When the real question that they should be asking is, or even you should be asking is, why am I getting an objection in the first place? And I say that because in 15 years of doing this work, I don't get objections on sales calls. And for a very long time, when people would ask me like, well, what do I do? And what do I do? And what do I do? Right? I would give them kind of this philosophical answer because I don't get objections. And then I had to start breaking down, well, why do you not get objections? And then why do some people do get objections? Like, why those hesitations come up, right? And so I really want to break that down. So let's really define objections, right? Because I think anytime that you get to the end of a sales process or the end of your sales call or discovery call, and you have talked to the potential client about what it is that you could do, about your offer, how you can get the results, and they say, well, I need to talk to my spouse. Or I'm really interested, but I don't have the money right now. Or I'm not really sure that this is going to work for me. Or I don't think I'm going to be able to show up to all the coaching or consulting meetings. So like whatever that thing is, we hear objection, 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 objection. And traditionally people have been taught you need to overcome those. Quite frequently what happens in people's effort to overcome that objection is that they actually create more tension, more friction, and they actually push the potential client further away versus getting them closer to saying yes. And the reason that happens is fundamentally for two reasons. The first reason is that when we're thinking about objection, we're thinking that we need to overcome it. And you cannot overcome something until you understand it, right? So that's the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to have this mindset shift about what an objection actually is, right? It isn't something that you need to overcome because you can't overcome it until you first understand it. And when it's something I'm trying to overcome is I'm locking horns, right? I'm like giving some rebuttals about why my price is the price and how other people are paying the price and like all of these things trying to overcome that objection, right? And selling my stuff. And I have the potential client here and we're just here, right? And no one is budging. That is how it works. But if I try to understand what that objection is, or what their hesitation is, or what their fear is, or what that unanswered question actually is, then I'm able to actually address the real issue. So instead of meeting that objection with a rebuttal, I want you to then start asking a question instead, right? And we'll dive more into this in a second. Instead of meeting it with a rebuttal, I want you to ask a question instead, right? And the reason that we're going to do this is it shifts the focus. Whoever is asking questions is the person that is controlling the conversation. So when they say, hey, I don't think that I can find the money for it, but I'm really interested, and I say, can you break that down for me? What do you actually mean by that? Okay, do you mean you don't think you can find the money today? Or are you thinking you don't think you'll ever be able to find the money, right? And there's a million questions that we could ask to get that broken down. But the key is we want to ask a question instead of having a rebuttal. When I ask that question, not only is it going to allow me to control the conversation, but in asking a question, it requires a response on their part. And that gives me more information to be able to understand what's the real hesitation, what's the real roadblock, right? The other piece is that it allows me to stay emotionally objective and you emotionally objective. If you are giving them a rebuttal, well, this is what my price is, and this is why we're better, and this is how we can do it faster, and you haven't been able to do it on your own, or do you really need to talk to your spouse, or I can meet with both of you, like all of that stuff, that person's defense is gonna go up, and you're gonna get emotionally involved, right? But when I say, hey, so when you say that you don't think that you're gonna be able to find the time to be able to execute, can you break that down for me? Because they may have the expectation that, oh, this sounds like a lot of work on my part, and my schedule is so full. But you might be able to say, well, really, it's only like 90 minutes a week. Oh, okay, well, I can fit that in, right? And so you don't want to get emotionally involved. And the easiest way for you to get emotionally involved is to have a rebuttal, and now you're locking horns, okay? So the other thing, aside from kind of shifting your mindset and approaching it from this is something that I need to overcome to versus this is something that I first need to understand what's actually going on below the surface, right? That's kind of the first piece, right? And to understand, we ask a question. The other thing is I want you to think about objections differently, right? And so instead of thinking this is I've got to get them to a yes so they can buy my stuff and I can make money and hit my goals, we want to move away from that kind of perspective of objections, because then you're just focused on yourself, okay? Instead, what I want you to be thinking about is the fact that this person is expressing their hesitation, their fear, their concern, or unanswered question is actually really to my benefit. Because that means that I built enough rapport with this person where they feel comfortable and safe to say, here's my issue and here's why I'm considering not moving forward. And that is actually a benefit, because if it's going to be a no, which by the way, you can get around that depending on what their challenge or issue is, you can get them to a yes. But if it is a no, I'd much rather know that now versus me chasing you for a week or 3 weeks or a month or three to 6 months, right? Like, let's save us all some time, right? And so it is actually really beneficial that if it is a no, that we identify that sooner rather than later. But the other thing is that it's really good that they're expressing those challenges or issues or concerns, because it gives you the opportunity to address it. Versus someone who says, well, I need to think about it, and now you're chasing them for months on end. Right? So it's better where you can address that in the moment and understand what their actual hesitation is, and the fact that they felt comfortable enough to even bring that information to you versus hiding behind email, hiding behind text, hiding behind the phone, or hiding behind Zoom. Right? And so that is actually a benefit. So shift your mindset there. The other thing is that if you are consistently getting the same objections over and over and over again, that is the indication that there's something broken in your process, right? So the first thing that I want you to do is shift your mindset on objections in and of itself. Objections are just unanswered questions, their hesitations, their fears, their concerns, and it's better for us to get those out on the table so we can address it versus having to hide behind email. And we also want to make the mindset shift that we don't overcome objections by meeting them with a rebuttal, but we try to understand what's actually going on at the root so we can address that. The second thing is that if you are consistently getting those same objections over and over again, that's an indication there is something broken in your sales process. What do I mean by that? That means you are either not pre-qualifying people ahead of time, you are not asking enough questions or qualifying people before you even get on a sales call, and therefore you are getting on sales call with people who are not qualified, who are not ready to actually buy. And you need to fix that part of your process. It might also mean, let's say that isn't your issue. Like, no, I'm actually pre-qualifying these people and they meet all the requirements. They're just not moving forward. Well, then that means there's something broken in the questions that you're asking or how you are presenting your offer, right? That's still your sales process, right? And so it could be we're asking some good questions, but we're not really communicating the value. We're not communicating the process. We're not communicating how we're going to get them from point A to point B. And there's some unanswered questions in their head that is making them go, I'm not really sure. Or it could be we are overwhelming them with stuff. Right? We've got 24 calls and we've got, 62 modules, or we've got, it's going to take 39 weeks or like whatever. Sometimes it's just how we've packaged the offer, how we present the offer, where it's just too bulky and it sounds very difficult and it sounds very heavy and it sounds very time intensive. And yes, although I want like the outcome and the payoff, the process to get there, you have scared me, right? Still, all of that is with your process. Right? And so if you are consistently getting people that say, well, I don't have the time, that means that you need to change how you are articulating the process that they're going to have to go through to get from point A to point B. If they're saying that they don't have the money, that means that you haven't really uncovered the pain that they have being where they are, nor have you clearly communicated or identified what is the payoff, what are they looking to accomplish. And you probably haven't done a good job showing them how your product or service or offer or coaching is going to get them from point A to point B. And if you have, you haven't done a very good job of that, right? And so you've got to look at like, this is feedback, right? It isn't that all these prospects aren't qualified. If that's the case, that's a problem for you, right? There's a problem with your messaging. There's a problem with your pre-qualification. There's a problem with your sales process. But it's key to say, okay, this is feedback for me to say there's something that I need to be doing different in my sales process, in my messaging, and how I'm presenting my offer. There is a disconnect somewhere, okay? Right, so the other thing that I put in here too is that it could also be your audience. It could be that you have a good offer, you have a good solution, your price point is right, but your messaging is attracting the wrong person. And again, that goes back to your pre-qualification. There's perhaps things that you need to change in your messaging that you actually attract the people who can afford you, who are ready to buy, who appreciate the value and the result that you can help them get. That goes back to messaging. And it could also be you need to pre-qualify better in your when they're booking an appointment with you or booking that call with you. What questions or information are you gathering ahead of time where you can say, I'm not sure if this person is going to be the best fit, and you might need to not go on that call or condense that call and really, really be qualifying them in the first few minutes of that call, right? The other thing that I made a note here too is that kind of the third thing, right, is that you will really want to focus on eliminating the objections ahead of time, right? So you should be expert enough in what it is that you do, especially if you've had, let's say, over 10 sales calls, to identify what are those potential hesitations, fears, concerns that people might have. Like, what might keep them from moving forward? Is it time? Is it money? Is it that they've tried something similar in the past and it didn't work? Is it that they don't believe in themselves? Is it they need accountability to actually get the result and like a course isn't going to help them? Is it like, what is it? And then what you want to do is you want to anticipate their potential hesitations and you need to eliminate them up front. Right, so I'll give you a great example of this. I was working with a corporate client and we were doing it was a $60,000 deal. It was going to be over, it was going to take me 90 days to do the work, but I was giving them 6 months to pay out the contract. So it was going to be 6 payments of $10,000. I was okay with that because although I would have liked $60K, like an influx of that, I also was like, that's essentially a $10,000 retainer for just that account for 6 months. Like, cool, right? Makes it easier to also manage the money, right? And so I was good with that. But what was going to end up happening is that 6 months later, they were actually going to be implementing what I had built, right? And so I knew the natural question would be, thank you for giving us 6 months to pay it. But then when we actually have to implement this, like, are you going to come back and help us? I anticipated what their needs were going to be. I anticipated what their questions were going to be. I anticipated what their hesitations were going to be. And then I just built it into the process. So when I went over the proposal, it was like, here's your problem. Here are the goals that you're trying to accomplish. Here's why we're doing this. Here's the process. Here's the deliverables. And by the way, I know that we're going to get this done 6 months in advance. So when the new year rolls around, I'm going to re-engage with you and I'm going to help you actually implement. And they're like, that was my next question. Of course, I know, because I'm anticipating their needs and I'm anticipating what can make them say, I'm not sure, and I want to eliminate those up front. Very similar, I have a program that is a sales accelerator, and I ran it one time. This is a program for entrepreneurs who want to get better at their sales calls, and they get access to my Master Discovery Calls course, and I had 6 weeks of coaching that I did with them. And so with my first cohort, after the second or third coaching session, I realized they are having a hard time going through the course, because some of the questions that they're asking me are questions that would have been answered if they actually gone through the course. And the course wasn't long. It's just that these are female entrepreneurs running businesses, managing their families, and trying to squeeze that in before our coaching call. They were having a difficult time. So you know what I did? I said, okay, and the next time I run the accelerator, I'm going to do a 2-day boot camp. They're going to be 2 half-day sessions. And during these 2 half-day sessions, I'm going to teach everything that I teach in the course. I'm going to teach it live, and we're going to build it on the call. Much better, right? I eliminated the objection because it was so much easier for them to say, okay, I'm in. Let me block off these 2 half-days. L'Oreal's going to teach me. I can ask the questions directly. I can build the process with her. And then I'll still have these coaching calls. But it doesn't take me 6 weeks to go through the course, and now I'm trying to figure out what questions I should have asked. I've gotten that two days built, ready to go, and now I can start using it on my calls. And now the calls are far more productive. They're going to get results far much quicker, right? And so that is what I'm talking about, right? So now the objection of like, well, I don't know if I have time to go through a course or all of this stuff. Nope, we're building it in 2 half-days. Done, right? And so I want you to be thinking about that for yourself. What objections or hesitations or fears or concerns might I run into or am I running into? And how can I eliminate that upfront within my sales process, or modifying my offer, or changing how I present my offer to show them how we're eliminating that before it even comes up, right? Where we're anticipating their needs and anticipating their thoughts. Last but least, if you're like, Lyria, I'm doing all of that, which I know you're not. But in the event that you're like, I've shifted my mindset, I have looked at my sales process, these are qualified people, I'm targeting the right audience, my message is good, my sales process is solid, I'm asking the right questions to create value, I am presenting the value of my offer, and I am I'm anticipating those needs and eliminating that with my offer, or eliminating that by addressing certain things within my sales process, and I'm still getting objections. Then what you want to do when you get an objection, this is after you've done the other stuff, right? Because if you do the other stuff, looking at your process, looking at your audience, looking at your offer, look at how you're presenting the offer, I guarantee you 95% of the objections are going to go away. Oh, pre-qualifying, 95, 96% of that is going to go away, okay? But the other 4%, right, if that were to come up, because we're treating these as questions, hesitations, and we are grateful that you are comfortable enough to present your hesitations to me, that I'm just going to ask a question, right? We want to isolate the objection, right? So if it is a timing deal, well, when you say you don't think that you're concerned about time and like the time investment, can you walk me through what that means, right? We're trying to isolate, is it really time, or is it time and money? Is it time plus commitment? Is it time but fear? Am I actually going to get the result? Right? So you want to hone in on that. And the easiest way to isolate the objection is by using a question, right? So let's pretend, another isolating question would be, so let's pretend that we were able to work with you on flexibility around the payments. Would you be interested in moving forward? Right. Well, if money is the real issue, then it could be, well, yes, I would move forward. Okay, and why? Well, because I really liked what you said about here, and I really like what you said about that, and I really like how this is going to help me here, and I really think that it is really that I'm just not in a position right now to responsibly make that decision. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. Great. If money isn't the real objection, I'm also going to know that, because they'll say, well, even if you were able to give me like a payment plan, I'm not really sure, because, okay, now I can deal with that objection, because I am running my business with my 9 to 5, plus I have 3 kids, and I just feel like I don't want to overwhelm myself and get into the program and not be successful. Okay, so your real problem is that you are concerned about the commitment and you don't want to overcommit and then not get the results that you're looking for. Is that the real issue? Yes. Okay, so we actually provide a coach for you. Or let me teach you how we have accountability. Or here's the structure that we put into place. Or here's how we're going to easily fit this into your schedule. And it's only for this amount of time. Are you willing to be committed for the next 6 weeks to change the rest of your life? Right? But you can't do that if you haven't isolated what the objection is. And understand, I am not trying to convince anybody or twist anybody's arm into a yes. If it is a no, I'm okay with the no. I just rather get that no sooner rather than later. I am not in the business of twisting people's arm. I'm not in the business of making people who really want to say no say yes, right? Because they're not going to be good clients anyway. I'd rather not waste my time because there's other people who are ready to say yes. They just don't know that I exist yet. And I'd rather spend my time, energy, and effort getting in front of them, right? And so should you, right? And so we don't want to twist people's arm and say yes. If it's a no, okay, I can take that no. I would still want to understand, hey, I understand that this isn't something that you're interested in moving forward with. Listen, you're a grown adult, right? I trust in your ability to make the right decision for you. If you don't mind me asking, what kept you from moving forward? Great question to ask. Again, this is feedback. And sometimes in asking that question, you'll realize there's an underlying fear or hesitation or an unanswered question that we can address. Or we identify, this actually wasn't the right person. Or we identify, I'm actually not the right person for them. That's okay. That is okay. You're not going to be right for everybody, right? And so I hope this gives you some practical things that you could do to help you when it comes to overcoming objections and really rethinking about that, right? We are in a day and age where people are over the real pushy, aggressive, manipulative sales tactics, and they're really unnecessary, and they're only really used by people who don't know how to sell, right? And so when it comes to objections, it is great feedback for you because it gives you an indication that there is something that you need to change about your sales process, and it's actually a gift that someone feels comfortable enough sharing that with you, and it is very possible to still sell beyond that when you come up from a place of trying to understand the objection or hesitation or fear or unanswered question versus trying to overcome it. Okay? So I would love to know in the comments your biggest takeaway, and good luck, much success.